And she said he loves chocolate, so I've won the prize for baking with this recipe at the Campbell County Fair a couple of years. I've won blue ribbons. So I sat there last night.
Many talented girls.
Oh yes, she is. Definitely.
Cut your dear face.
How do you bring it over here so I can get it on the camera?
He's gonna think he's got a stalker.
Oh yeah, there we go. There we go. Hold on a second. I'll take a picture.
Oh, here.
Here, hang on a second.
I thought the man's gonna think he has a stalker.
And I'll get a real close.
I don't know what your fans.
Oh yeah, this is
crave on Thanksgiving.
all right.
I didn't know what your fans did.
Here, let me hold this.
Rusty's cooks it, you'll be snacking your
All right.
savory goodness.
Whack
That's
job.
Thanksgiving at Rusty's
And even special, I had chocolate napkins, so.
Call 513
Oh, so anyway.
6880. Rusty's is in Deer Park on Blue Ash Road.
There we go.
I thought we would have fun.
And only a few minutes from Kenwood, Blue Ash, and Montgomery.
Isn't
Rusty's.
that the truth?
Oh.
Hello, pet lovers. It's time for Marsie's Menagerie on 1480 WDJO. For the next hour, your host, pet care expert Marsie Hall Newbold, and her trusty basset hound, Nosy, will share the latest information to help give your furry, feathery, and finny friends the happiest and healthiest lives possible. You're invited to call in and ask questions of Marsie's guests. The number to call is 513-749-1480. Now, here's Marsie.
Good morning. Hello, pet parents, and welcome back to Marsie's Menagerie on 1480 WDJO. I'm Marsie Hall Newbold, and my sidekick and best friend, Nosy the Basset Hound, is right here beside me, once again, sharing the microphone, although she doesn't really speak, or she doesn't even sit up for that matter. She just sort of howls. And and see, we were in the studio. My husband, Tom, and I were in the studio with Ted McAllister, earlier this week, lying on the floor of the studio with the microphones down there, and we were going, trying to get the dog to howl. And I looked at my husband and I said, is this what our life has come down to? You're a professor emeritus from UC with free parking, for life, and here I am, well, at least I'm well-respected publicist. The mayor of Cincinnati did proclaim Marsie Hall Newbold Day on May the 1st, so I mean, it must be true. Anyway, so we're all having, that's what life's about. Just don't forget to have fun. And this is a very special show for me because my special guest is John A. Ruthven, the naturalist, author, lecturer, and well, he's just an internationally acknowledged master of wildlife art, and he's going to be discussing his body of work, his philosophy and wildlife conservation, his current projects, and especially we're going to ask him about that wonderful works mural in downtown Cincinnati, and his current projects, and he'll also be taking your questions. Our telephone lines, if you'd like to call with a question, they're open at 513-749-1480. Again, it's 513-749-1480. And the new executive director of the League for Animal Welfare, David Kennard, is also joining us to discuss the organization's services and tell us about their upcoming events. The League for Animal Welfare is a non-profit organization that operates the first established and largest adoption center and no-kill animal shelter in Cincinnati. They're located in Batavia, and they have a variety of innovative programs, including adoption, spay and neuter, humane education, and their main focus is striving to ensure that animal companionship is accessible to everybody. And as always, Bob, the producer Barry, is going to weigh in with the lighter side of pet ownership with his latest heavy petting segment. He's going to be calling in live for that this week. So to join the conversation or to ask a question, phone 513-749-1480. Our lines are open now. Friend me on my Facebook page. It's Marsie, Marsie, Hall, Hall, Newbold, Newbold. and you can go to that and then link to videos, podcasts, recipes, my website, and well, just all sorts of cool things. First, I'd like to welcome John Ruthven. Thank you for coming.
Well, Marsie, it's indeed my pleasure to be here, and what a welcome I had. Golly, Marsie greeted me with her big, wonderful smile, and right alongside of her was her little pet Basset.
Little? 71 and a half pounds?
She feeds him well.
Her! She's very
oh,
dainty.
gosh,
Did you notice that her back feet, that she has the toenails painted?
Oh, I gotta look at that.
I was hoping you might paint them, and she could say that she was painted by John Ruthven, but it would be her toenails.
I've given you a brush, Marsie, and if you get some paint, we'll do it.
Yes, Mr. Ruthven brought me a used, I asked him, I have met him several times before, and I asked I was very shy, I'm such a fangirl, and I said, Mr. Ruthven, when you come to the studio, do you think you might bring me one of your used paintbrushes? and he said, why yes. And you know, this is really a big tradition. I mean, the Monkees, they used to tear their clothes off, you know, at concerts. But also Franz Liszt, I understand that back in the day when he would go to the to the concert halls, that sometimes the women who were his fangirls back then, they would pull the little hairs out of the horses' tails that carried him in his carriage.
I've never heard of that. That's very interesting.
So look, Simon Anderson, one of my professors at the University of Cincinnati, told that story, and I'm worried about those horses. I had nightmares.
A lot of long hairs in the tail, so I guess they can part with a couple.
Well, you were telling me a story just before when I told people that John Ruthven was going to be on my show. I had so many of my friends, they were deeply impressed, and they all seemed to have their own John Ruthven stories. And my friend Susan Gabbard, who used to work for WCET, she mentioned to me that she had been to your studio in Georgetown, and they were doing a documentary, and she said, Marsie, you know, that man has a whole freezer of roadkill. and so you said that was true.
Well, it really is, but it gives people the wrong impression. My two kids grew up with this, seeing me involved with all these birds. But to tell you what it was, there's a wonderful collection of bird skins at the Natural History Museum. Now, bird skins in this collection identify native birds, and they don't want to shoot them like they used to. So there's a special federal permit that you're allowed to pick up roadside kills. Now, it takes a lot of people a long time to understand what this is all about. When I know my kids would my daughter Ricky would bring her friends into the house, and they'd open up the freezer, and there's a dead robin staring them in the eye. And so it kind of freaked them out, but the kids got used to this, and I've skinned out over 1,000 birds for the collection at the Natural History Museum over the years. And I've used them in my paintings. If you pick up these birds under the federal permit, you are duty-bound to give them to an institution. In fact, I've given a lot to the University of Cincinnati and their biological department. So that's what it's all about. But my old credo, when I grew up as a kid, I used to hunt rabbits and squirrels, and our credo was, if you shoot it, you eat it. And so I think when someone sees a bunch of dead birds in my freezer, they don't know what I'm about. So.
They think you're going to have possum or like Granny Clampett's dinner.
Oh, that's right.
Now, you told me about a story that I just love about a fox.
Yeah. Okay. Would you like to hear?
I think that our audience deserves to hear that story.
Well, continue on with this roadside kill thing. My dear wife, departed wife Judy, was very upstanding about my desire to pick up these roadside kills, and understood what I was doing. And so this one day we were leaving Georgetown, we were going to a formal occasion in Cincinnati, and she was in a lovely gown, and I had a tux on, and we were going west out on Route 52, and lo and behold, the car in front of us hit a fox just in front of us, and the fox came rolling by our car, and I looked at it, slammed the brakes on, and I could see in the mirror it was dead, and I stopped the car.
Oh, you could just tell from the mirror.
Yeah, it wasn't jumping around.
Now, I would have been down, I imagine, now, I knew Judy, that she would have been down with her compact mirror, holding it up against its nose.
Oh, yeah, the
Checking, yes.
Oh, gosh. Well, anyway, she looked at me and she said, John, you aren't, are you? We're going to this formal occasion. I said, sure I am. I opened the door and I ran back, and this is a main highway, and cars were passing by, and here I am with a tux on, picking up this dead fox, observing it, and I often wondered what those people thought as they were driving by. So I brought it back, and she said, what are you going to do with it now? And so I said,
what are you going to do?
Flip the trunk lid. And so she flipped it, and I had a couple newspapers back there, so I very carefully laid it on there. It was dead as a doornail, and it wasn't bloody. Must have broken its back or something. And so I laid it down there. We went all through the occasion that night, and no one knew what I had in the trunk of the car, especially the parker, parking the car. But this is the way it went for years and years. I picked up these things, but I used them for scientific purposes. And I ultimately painted many Red Fox paintings from that study scanner.
I think that's a wonderful idea.